Hello. Hi. Welcome to another installment of my personalized lessons. Greetings to everyone, and I hope all you guys are well. Um, this is another personalized lesson, guys. So it's based on business studies in grade 10. Now, this is, like I said, it's a personalized lesson, so it is tailored to the specific student or the learner. So somewhere in the lesson I'll be switching languages to Sepedi. Please forgive me if there's anything you don't understand. And just a little disclaimer to anyone that's watching: I am not a professional teacher. What I do is based on my understanding on whatever I'll be covering or whatever I'm covering at that time. So if there's anything that I might have said that you don't understand, or anything you feel like I did not mention how it's supposed to be mentioned, or how you heard from someone else, please forgive me, guys. This is just a simplified lesson tailored to the specific student. Now, if there's anything you do not understand, you are more than welcome to consult your teachers or consult other resources like Google, just to further your understanding. This is just based on my understanding, and I'll try as much as I can to be on my best behavior. So without wasting any of your time, let's get straight into it. This is a business studies lesson, grade 10, and we are going to be covering what we call the micro environment. Now, before we start, we are going to have objectives that we must meet based on this lesson. So the first objective is to achieve the overall understanding of the microenvironment. The second objective is to understand the 8 business functions. Now, each and every business, as far as I know or can remember, whether it's an informal business or whether it's a formal business. Informal simply meaning your spaza shop or your spaza shop, and a formal business is your retail companies, clothing stores, food markets, your Woolworths, Pick and Pay, whatever big business or enterprise you might know of has these functions. They might not be 8, but trust you me, there are business functions in each and every business. These functions help the business to achieve whatever goals they have, to maximize on profit as well as the overall growth of the business. Now, the third and last objective is to have an idea of the 3 levels of management. Now, without wasting any of your time, let's just get straight into it. Like I said, we are covering the microenvironment. So the first thing you should ask yourself, what is the microenvironment? Now, according to my understanding, the microenvironment is the environment in which the employees of any organization work in. So when I say use I to indicate inside, this is how I remember the difference. Now, the microenvironment, or micro is spelled M-I-C-R-O. Now, the I in micro is for inside. So for you to understand the difference between micro and macro, I for micro is used to, I use it to indicate inside. So micro is the environment inside of the business, and then obviously macro, I use the O at the end, so it's M-A-R-C-O. Then the O at the end I use to indicate outside. Now, this environment, the micro environment, is where the culture of the company is built. All the internal factors are also found in this environment. The organizational culture, things like your equipment and so forth. This is my understanding of the micro environment. Now, the micro environment consists of these factors. Number 1, the goals of the company, of the business or the organization, the vision statement, and lastly, the objectives of the business. The second factor is the organizational culture. The third factor for me in terms of this business or the micro environment would obviously be your resources, your equipment, and so forth. Now, I use the example of Spare. Now, each and every Spare you'd walk in, whether you're in Limpopo, whether you're in Cape Town, you would find exactly the same thing, the same uniform, the same practices. For example, when there is a birthday, if you go to a Spare in Pumalanga and someone is celebrating their birthday, there's always this song they sing. There's the employees also wear the same uniform. So this is just to give you a broader idea of what is the microenvironment or the organizational culture. The uniform they wear, the chairs, the paintings inside the restaurant, the lighting as well is an example of the organizational culture. You'd find the very same things in all the spaces you might work in. Moving forward, we are going to cover the vision, mission, goals, and objectives. Like I said, the microenvironment consists of two factors: the vision, mission, goals, and objectives, as well as the organizational culture. Now, the first part or the first factor is obviously the vision, mission, goals, and objectives. Now, what is a vision in general terms? For me personally, a vision is what a person or an organization wants to achieve. For an example, Nike has a vision of manufacturing 1 million Air Force sneakers in the year 2021. This is just my personal example. It's not something I know. It's just an example. So it's a vision that Nike has to manufacture 1 million Air Force sneakers in the year 2021. Now, the vision statement is the plan and activities the business will do in order to achieve what the mission. So a vision is what the organization wants to achieve, and the vision statement is the activities that the business will do in order to achieve that particular mission. Now, another example of a mission statement is Nike will construct 100 factories in each country to achieve the production of these 1 million sneakers. So what is the vision of Nike in this instance? The vision of Nike is to manufacture 1 million Air Force sneakers in the year 2021. But how will they get, or how will the company get to producing those exactly 1 million Air Force sneakers? They will construct factories, 100 factories in each and every country, whether those countries, some of the countries are in the northeast, southwest, anywhere, but they will construct 100 factories in order to achieve that production of the 1 million sneakers. That's the vision statement. That's my personal example, guys, like I said. Now, what are goals? Goals are targets, usually long-term targets the business or an individual aims to reach. For example, a personal goal maybe I might have is to drive a Bentley in 5 years. That is my personal goal. I'm not saying it's my goal, but it's just an example of a goal. Does not relate to the business world only. We all have goals in life. Now, goals give the business a roadmap in order to achieve the goals it sets. There are two types of goals a business sets. I might be right, I might be wrong, but I'm just saying this is according to my understanding. The primary goals is to manufacture or produce 1 million sneakers. A personal primary goal is to drive a Bentley in 5 years. Now, the secondary goals are goals in which the company or the person must follow in order to achieve that primary goal, similar to a vision and vision statement generally. So a secondary goal in terms of the Nike example is to grow their brand worldwide and to produce quality sneakers that will be able to please the buying customer or the target market. Now, what are objectives? Objectives are an explanation of how the business will reach its goals. There are also steps that are taken to reach those specific goals. For example, Nike will produce sneakers in clean factories and invest in quality materials and equipment to manufacture the 1 million sneakers. So it's simple. Vision statement, goals and objectives. They go hand in hand. A vision goes hand in hand with the vision statement, and goals go hand in hand with objectives. What are your goals? To drive a Bentley in the next 5 years. Okay. What are your objectives? My objectives is to invest as much as I can financially in order to get to the buying price of that Bentley in the next 5 years. Or maybe an objective would be working as hard as I can in order to grow my wealth as an individual, so I'll be able to buy that Bentley in the next 5 years. These are just my personal examples. So a vision and a vision statement go hand in hand, they go together. And then the goals, the objectives, I'm sure even in life orientation you do cover these topics. So it's more or less the same thing, but in this part they are emphasizing more on the business. Now the second factor, remember the first factor is the vision, mission, goals and objective, and the second factor of the environment, of the microenvironment rather, is the organizational culture. Now this is the personality or the way of life of the business. The organizational culture is made up of employees who have different values, cultures, beliefs and attitudes. Similar to that example I gave via Spare, or where you find each and every employee at Spare is from a different background, but they work together in order to achieve what the organizational culture of Spare is. So another example here would be employees from different backgrounds at ShopRite working together every day to achieve the common goal that ShopRite wants to achieve. Now, there are different types of cultures as well. There's the positive culture. Now, in an environment where the culture is always positive, this vibe or this energy helps staff to be more productive and to be encouraged at all times. There's the opposite, that is the negative culture. Now, if you work in a negative culture, you are not motivated. You feel like you want to sleep. You don't want to wake up and go to work. Now, it's important for a business to always have a positive culture, because it leads to the employees being satisfied, being happy about what they do, which means it's more effective for the business in terms of the employees painting a picture of positivity. This means that their customers also are served by very happy employees. Now, a negative culture leads to a boring working environment, and I don't think any one of us wants to work in that kind of an environment. So this is just generally the organizational culture side of the business. The second aspect of the microenvironment, or we are still focusing on the organizational culture. So under the organizational culture, we covered in your positive culture and your negative culture. We also said the organizational culture is the personality or the way of life of the business. Now, the organizational resources are the assets the business uses to produce goods and services. These resources are controlled by the top management in most cases. So there are 4 types of organizational resources. Number 1 is the physical resources. These are your machinery, equipment, buildings is the infrastructure, the building in which the business operates in. The second organizational resource, or the type of organizational resource, is the financial resources. These are the banks that keep the business's money. This is the insurance that protects business. For example, Spa inali an insurance in case there is a fire in the shop. Obviously Spa pays that insurance each and every month. In the event our machinery the machinery is not functioning, that there is an insurance that protects the business in that instance. So these are part of the financial resources of the business. Then there's the human resources. These are the employees, these are the volunteers that occasionally work in the business, your managers as well. These are all employees, managers, supervisors, cleaners, your security guards, your cashiers, your waiters in restaurants. They all form part of the employees. So it's the third part of an organizational resource. It's the human resource. Shortly it's called HR. And then the last type of an organizational resource is what we call intellectual resources. Now these are the important documents of the business. For example, your financial books, the books of the business where they record the financial transactions. So tshwana le tšhelete e tsenego ka tšatši la mohuta o khibele bokae, or banking go na le bokae, how much the business keeps in the bank. These are the important documents. The contract, the tša babereki, employee contracts, these are intellectual resources, important documents generally of what, of the business. Now it's also important to understand gore these resources di a tsamaelana, gore they work hand in hand. I want a business is your human resource department, because that's the most important part for me, the most important resource, because if the employee is not treated well, they can refer their complaints to HR wangushisha. And then there is also the management, leadership and control. Now this generally covers all businesses, because each and every business must have a good management to ensure that the business performs to the best of its abilities. For an example, as a footballer, you must always train in order to be the best performer. So your coach must also be someone that's at the top of the ladder in terms of coaching, in terms of training, in order for you to yield the utmost physical performance on the pitch. So a soccer player must be trained by a good coach in order to be the best performer. An employee, a waiter, must be managed by a great supervisor in order for the employee to work to the best of their abilities. A business also would generally hire a manager to oversee the performance of the business. Your general manager, your human resource managers, financial manager. So human resources manager manages the employees and the contracts. A financial manager manages finances of the business. So without any of those managers in the business, there is going to be an imbalance. Business e ka se tsamaya gabotse, because I want them to go shupa gore okay, this quarter for the last 10 months the business has been losing money. If there's no manager who's going to oversee those things, it's going to be difficult for the business to identify its mistakes, as well as to know where to improve as a business financially. Now, there are 4 tasks of a manager. Number 1 is planning. The manager must plan the activities and the duties of the business. The manager must set the goals and the targets. For example, a financial manager would sit down, maybe a CEO, or maybe the employee of the company, or not employee. A manager of a human resources manager would sit down a employee to say, as the manager that manages the human resources get employees, this is what I expect from you as an employee. Then we set targets based on that, similar to a teacher or a tutor. They would sit down with the learner to say, in this month I want you to achieve these results, and this is how we are going to achieve these results. Now the second task of a manager is to organize. Your manager organizes resources like money, organize employees, like I said in the previous example. Infrastructure is your building, your equipment, in order to reach the targets that are set by the business. The third function of a manager is to lead. You offer motivation as a manager to the employees and lead them towards reaching the goals set by the business, and also ensure that they carry out their respective tasks to the best of their abilities each and every day. And the last task, or the last duty of a manager, is to control. You control the organization's results against the goals that are set by the business, and you take action to make sure the planned goals are on track. So for example, if I'm a manager at a retail store, maybe my target was to reach 500 new customers in the year. Now what I will do is I will sit down the employees to say, these are the targets I set. I want us to attract 500 new customers into the business. What are the targets? Those are the targets, but what are the objectives? This means that we must ensure that each and every customer that walks into the business is always served to the best of our abilities. They are always happy when they leave the business. This means that when they are happy as they leave the business, they are going to tell other people to say, I was at so and so's shop, this is how I got served, let's go and try the shop again, or let's go and visit the restaurant again. That will lead to another customer walking in with the initial customer that was there before. So as that cycle grows and that as that cycle moves, then it's easier for our target to be reached. You understand? So these are just general examples that I use. I just hope you are not lost, but I also believe that as you watch the lesson, as you can rewind and fast forward, you'll also be able to understand general, because it's not very easy to get the concept the first time. Now the next topic in the micro environment are the levels of management. Remember, we also said this is one of our objectives rather in the beginning of the lesson. Now there are three types of manage or three levels of management. This is just a picture to give you an idea. So you have your top managers, your middle managers, and your first line managers. But these are your employees, your supervisors. You report to the middle managers. These are the three levels of management. There's top, there's middle, and there's low management, or the lower level of management, middle management, and the top level of management. There are three types of or three levels of management. We'll revise the levels of management in the slide that is to follow. Now, like I said, there are three levels of management. The first level of management is the top management. Now, this consists of the board of directors, your chief executive or your managing director, CEOs, your board of directors, your shareholders as well. They also form part of your top management. Now the top management is the ultimate source of authority, and it manages the goals and the policies for the enterprise. It also devotes more time on planning and coordinating functions. So for example, take for instance, I'm thinking of a easier example. Let's use Kaiser Chiefs. Yeah, I love the team, but yeah, let's not go there. We'll use Kaiser Chiefs. For example, Kaiser Chiefs is owned by Mr. Kaiser Motaung. Now he's the CEO or the executive of the team. He is part of the top management. Now he also owns, or he also works alongside your shareholders, your board of directors, and your managing directors. These are the people, or Mr. Kaiser Motaung as a top or as someone that falls under the top management of the team. He is responsible for doing what? He's responsible for ensuring that the goals of the business are met. He initiates the goals. So the vision of the business comes from him. The vision of the team comes from him at the top. Now he spends more time on planning and coordinating the functions of the team. Whether the team will be traveling, some of the decisions are taken by him. He's part of the top management. This is just another example, just to make it easier for you to understand. Now the second level of management is the middle management. Now this group of people, they interpret and explain the policies from the top level of management to the lower level. Now they are the bridge. I call them the intermediaries. They are the third party for me, because they relay the message from the top management to the low management. But for now, let's stick to the middle management. These people are responsible for coordinating the activities within the division or department. So like I said, the top management, Mr. Kaiser Motaung, says to the middle management, this is what I want the team to achieve this year or in the next 5 years. Then the middle management will pass on the message to your players. They'll pass on the message to your kit managers to say, this is what Mr. Motaung wants to achieve. So this is how he says we are going to achieve it. That's the responsibilities of the middle management. Now this part of the management of a business or an organization, it sends important reports and other important information to the top level of management. So for example, the middle manager would go to the players and say, Mr. Motaung wants the team to achieve so many goals maybe this season, or Mr. Motaung wants to attract more sponsors to the team. Now based on their response, so he will pass on the message, and however they respond, the middle managers are responsible to take back that message to the top level management, to Mr. Motaung in this instance. Now there is the last level of management. I did not cover it here. I think there must have been a mistake on my side, but it's fine. The last level of management is the lower level of management. This is where you find your employees. This is where you'd find your supervisors. These are the people that actually work on the activities of the business. These are the people that are responsible to carry out the goals set by the business. So Mr. Mutaung would tell the middle managers to say, I want to attract a new sponsor this season. That's the vision for the team, for the business. Now the middle manager would then pass on the message to the lower level of management. Those are the players, to say Mr. Mutaung wants to attract new sponsors, and he says how we are going to achieve this is by winning maybe each and every game, is by behaving professionally at all times, is to play football that will attract the supporters, and to ensure that we are on our best performance each and every game. So the lower level of management are the ones responsible for taking those activities and doing those activities. They are the most important people for me in any business, because without employees there is no business. So it's important as well for the top level to also treat the lower level of management, which are employees, with the utmost respect, and because these are the people that carry out the vision of the business. So there are also what we call the business functions. I think this is our last objective of the lesson, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said in the beginning of the lesson, the business has not, they might not be 8 functions, but each and every business personally has functions that they carry out in order to ensure that the business is always performing at its best. Now the 8 business functions in any business operation or management must be effective if the business is to be successful in achieving its goals. Now all these functions, what this means is that they must work hand in hand. They must work together in order to help the business achieve its goals. I'll go back to the example of Kaizer Chiefs. Now say the marketing department of Kaizer Chiefs must work hand in hand with the human resource department, or the employees are carrying out the duties that were given by top management in order for the team to be successful in doing what? In attracting that sponsor. You understand? So we'll review them in the next slide. The first business function is the general management. Now the general management must also create a vision and mission for the business. This is usually the top level of management. So the first business function is the general management. They must create a vision and mission for the business, and to ensure that these visions and these objectives and missions, they are achieved through the goals and objectives. Okay, so the general management creates a vision, and a mission is how you are going to achieve that a vision. So Mr. Motaung in this instance creates a vision for the team. Say, this is my team, Kaizer Chiefs, and I want it to attract a sponsor. Now it is also important for Mr. Motaung as the general management of the business to ensure that that target of attracting a sponsor is met through the goals and objectives. Goes back to what? To your the first part of the lesson where we covered vision, mission, goals, and objectives. Remember, I also said these things work hand in hand. So effective planning, like your organization, activating, leading, directing, and controlling of resources. The resources are your human resources, equipment, finances, and the functions is very necessary, because if you don't lead or if you don't control these resources, you'll not be able to achieve his goal of attracting the sponsor. Now, if these tasks are too much for one person, they can be delegated to other members of staff. So if the general manager cannot take responsibility for all those tasks, they can delegate. That's why there are different people working in the same human resource department. For example, these people are there to ensure that each and every target within the business is met. Now the second business function is to organize. What I understand of organization or organizing, it is simply the process of looking at what needs to be done in the side of the business. So the function of organizing, sorry, the function of organizing resources, it's important because this function ensures that resources are organized, including people. And employees are resources of the business because, like I said, without employees, there is no business. So it's also important to organize these resources in a way that these goals and objectives are met. I mean, you cannot produce 1 million Nike Air Force sneakers if the resources, finances, they are not organized. There are no people working in those factories who are going to produce those sneakers. And it's also important to organize the jobs within specific functions or departments. So, for example, the part or the marketing department of Kaiser Chiefs would use every resource possible available to them, social media, uh, yeah, mostly social media these days, to say the team is winning, and it's part of the objectives of the Kaiser Chiefs to meet its goals, to say this is how we are going to attract the sponsor. You know, you post videos of the team playing, you take pictures of the players, you interview the players to find out how they live outside of football. These are all part of the objectives or the functions that the marketing department of Kaiser Chiefs will use in order to attract that sponsor. It's just part of organizing. That's the second business function. There, like I said, there are other functions of the business. We covered only two functions. The third function of the business, excuse me, my laptop is freezing on me. I don't know why. Okay, here we go. The third part or the third business function is financing. Now, financial activities include planning how much money is needed for the business to sustain, or for the business to grow, or for Nike to produce those 1 million sneakers. There is money that's involved there. I mean, you cannot say you want to build 100 factories that will make it possible for those sneakers to be produced if there's no money. Um, the second part of these activities include obtaining money. So how are you going to get money as Nike in order to produce those uh, uh, 1 million sneakers? 1 million sneakers. It also involves what we call attracting sponsorship, you know. And then the last financial activity is managing money in all the departments. So the human resource department, for example, or the finance department will set a budget for the business to say this is how much you are going to spend this year in order to produce those 1 million sneakers. If there's any one of you guys in the finance department that's going to misuse money, then we will not be able to build those factories, we will not be able to pay employees, will not be able to ensure that these employees get to work as positive as they can. These employees will not be able to get bonuses that will encourage them to want to work even harder in order to reach the goal of producing 1 million sneakers. So personally, the financing function of the business for me is the most important thing, because there's nothing the business can do without enough financial resources or enough financial strength. So the fourth business function is purchasing. Now the aim of the purchasing function is to make sure that the business has all the necessary goods and services that are needed, obviously, to run the business efficiently. I think they work hand to hand with the purchasing, with the financing function, because if there's no money in the business, you're not able to purchase equipment that will be perfect to produce those 1 million sneakers. I hope there's sense in what I'm saying. Now, purchasing, obviously, there are different reasons why people or the business would purchase certain resources. For example, the resale of business equipment and products. So, the purchasing function works in a manner that allows the business to sell some of its equipment to buy better equipment. So, for example, Nike maybe in the process of building these 1 million sneakers, some of the equipment is not longer functioning very well. So what Nike will do in order to ensure that the target of producing these sneakers at the end of the year maybe is reached, is to resell that equipment, to say this equipment is not functioning, so we are going to resell certain equipment in certain factories, in order for us to get what new equipment that will ensure that we are able to continue with the process of producing these sneakers. I mean, there is nothing Nike can do with equipment that is not functioning properly. They won't be able to produce those sneakers. Those are the goals. So we want to produce 1 million sneakers, and our objectives is to ensure that there is the best possible equipment. If the equipment is old, we resell the equipment in order for the target to still be in place, so we are not behind with our target. Now the second part of purchasing, or these are the different reasons basically for purchasing: conversion into finished or finished products. So for example, Nike would say, since this equipment is now working, we bought new equipment, it's functioning. Now we want to ensure that with this equipment that we bought, we are able to turn the semi product. So for instance, maybe there's a leather that must be installed in that shoe, in that sneaker. So in order for that leather to be installed rather on that sneaker, for it to be a proper sneaker, we need to ensure that we have the best equipment. So you convert that semi-finished product into a finished product. So for example, you would not have an Air Force sneaker without shoelaces, for an example, or there is that rubber underneath the sole inside the shoe. So you would not have a full sneaker without that sole in the shoe, or you would not have a full Nike Air Force sneaker without the logo, that tick on the shoe. So you need equipment. You need to purchase equipment that will be able to ensure that that sole is fitted in properly, that leather is of good quality. Now the last part of purchasing would be for own use, such as cleaning materials or transport. For example, the business would purchase cleaning materials to ensure that the factories that people will be working in are always clean. I mean, no one wants to work in a dirty place. Or they'll buy their own vehicles to transport workers from their place of work or to home, and vice versa. That means that their workers are on time. That means that if the workers are on time, then the targets for the day, they are going to be met, because if 90% of the employees do not reach work at 8 a.m., for example, it's very impossible for the goals for the day to be achieved. So these are the reasons why a business would purchase its own transport vehicles. Now the fifth function of the business, yes, the fifth function of the business is PR, public relations. And the importance of public relations is very huge, because this is how me as an individual will see Nike. Public relations is important, because there is a need to create a good name and a positive image for Nike. I mean, no one wants to associate themselves with a business that is not portraying themselves as a professional business. Their workers are always late, or you go to a restaurant, maybe spare, and the waiters serve you incorrect food. That creates a bad image for the business. So that's why public relations is a very important function of a business, because people see the business before they actually walk into the doors. For example, Nike now. Nike is known globally because it portrays a positive image to the customers, and it's also important to ensure that good relationships with stakeholders are met, or they are needed. For example, your employees, your suppliers, your customers, the government, your trade unions and media. For example, if Kaiser Chiefs is always rejecting interviews with the media, people will also see Kaiser Chiefs as they will see it in a bad light, meaning it's not as user friendly. But the associate le club e tshwanang le Chiefs simply because the manager does not want to attend interviews, or the players also behave in a badly manner. So for me personally, the PR or public relations function in a business is very important, because people want to see a positive image before they can associate themselves with that particular business. Now, like I said, there are 8 functions of the business. We covered 5. So function number 6 of a business is administration. Now, administration is there in the business, and its duty is to ensure that all workers are responsible for all the tasks and activities in the office. For example, this function is there in a business to ensure that whatever information is there, they handle it in the most appropriate manner to in order to make good decisions. So administration is basically responsible for all the tasks and activities in the office or in the business. For example, the handling of information used for decision making. For example, if Mr. Motaung has written a portfolio to the middle management to say, this is what I want the team to achieve, these are documents that are very important to Kaiser Chiefs, because if the middle manager was to mishandle that information, then the team would lose its vision, its sense of direction. Now, this department or this function also is there for the management of information, similar to what I just said now. Whatever information the business will produce, it's important for this administration function to ensure that the management of that information is accurate. And the last task for this function in the business is to ensure that there is enough office practice and information technology. For example, we are living in the digital world rather. So things like your laptops, things like your softwares that people send emails with, Gmails, your Excels for spreadsheets, these are important for the business. So this function of the business, the administration function of the business, ensures that whatever softwares or whatever resources that they are in the business, including your employee contracts, they are always kept in a manner that will ensure that they are kept safe, and ensure that whatever information the business has, that information is also passed on to maybe the lower level of management to say, these are the laptops we are producing, or these are the laptops we'll be using. Please ensure that they are used properly. The 7th function of a business is production. Now, this function also is another important one personally for me, because it ensures that all the raw materials are turned into finished products by turning labor, capital, and entrepreneurial skills. So what this simply means is that, for example, if Nike says they want to produce 1 million sneakers, now this function of the business, the production function of the business, it will ensure that whatever raw materials that are used to produce that Nike sneaker, this function allows those materials to be turned into finished products. For example, capital in as an example, it simply means that a production function of the business ensures that whatever money that was placed to buy those raw materials is used adequately, because you cannot use half of the money to produce that finished product and then think that sneaker will be a finished product, because you spent half of the money and maybe you bought second-hand raw materials. You will not get 1 million finished product. You understand? This is also an important function for me now in the business, because you like I said, you ensure that even in the factories mo na ke tla beng e producer dieta tše gona, you ensure whatever raw materials are used, they must all be used efficiently. All those raw materials must be used up in order to produce those 1 million sneakers. So the last business function is what we call the marketing function. Goes back to Kaiser Chiefs scenario. Marketing and PR, public relations, they work hand in hand, because this is how people will see Kaiser Chiefs. This is how the consumer will view Nike as a brand. So marketing is an important function for the business because it involves the selling of goods and services in order to meet the needs of the target market, which is the consumer. I'll use Spare again. I hardly see their adverts, but Spare ensures they have a social media page: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They have an active email address where customers will be able to send in their feedback. It's easier for the customer to engage with the company through social media. So if there are any suggestions the customer wants to give to Spare, the easiest way is to go onto Facebook or social media and relay that message. So it's an important function as well for the business, because without even walking into the restaurant, also go dula lefase, you already have an idea. So if Spares behaves in a manner that's not professional, maybe on social media, if maybe a customer was giving a suggestion on how to improve their efficiency in the kitchen, or maybe dijo tša lena di tla morago nako e telele, and then whoever is responsible for that Facebook page responds in a manner that's not professional, maybe a roge di custom or roga di followers, it's a bad thing to do. Ka gore already ke sojo ke tsena Spare without even sitting inside that restaurant, I already have an idea ya gore kana Spare si treat the customer in such a manner. So it's important to have a marketing function in any business, informal or formal business. It's also important for the business to use the right promotion tools in order to create a need or desire for the consumer to buy. Goes back to my example, social media. You must, for an example, go into your favorite soccer team's social media page, look at the comments and see how the team responds. You will see even if a supporter was being rude, maybe the team lost, you guys don't know what you're doing, but if look at how the team responds, they always respond in a professional manner, because it paints a picture of the team. Even though Mr. Motaung, for example, did not write that message, but it sends a message to the supporters to say Kaiser Chiefs as a whole is its image is bad. So it's also important for the business to use the right promotion tools, like have a social media page, have an email address, go to radio interviews, TV interviews, produce ads on TVs. It's important for any business to use these tools in order to reach the target market. It's an important function. So another example here is I like using this scenario because it's a personalized resource that Nike did. For example, they would make ads of superstars like Cristiano or Michael Jordan, excuse my spelling there, in order to create a desire for the customer to purchase their sneakers, clothes, or even soccer boots. So because that boot or that t-shirt was worn by Cristiano Ronaldo or by Neymar or by the Williams twins, Serena and I forgot the other sister. That's why these Nike will approach these superstars, because you feel like if that soccer boot is worn by Cristiano, you also want to wear that boot because it is worn by Cristiano. So that's how they also attract customers. So like I always say, it's important for any business to have a marketing department. This concludes the end of the lesson. We're just going to test your knowledge of whatever we have covered. Now, these are only multiple choice questions. I think I'm only going to do this part of the slide. I'll forward the rest of the questions to, I'll forward them personally to you. So let's just test the knowledge of the topic we just covered, which is the microenvironment. So choose the correct answer and only write the letter of the answer you selected. Obviously you won't write now, we'll just call out the answer. So 1.1 says the dream of the business is known as the A, mission, B, vision, C, goals, D, objectives. So based on what we have covered, what do you think the dream of the business is? Is it A, the mission, B, the vision, C, the goals, or D, objectives? I won't give you the answer, or I won't give out the answer, because we are testing your knowledge here. 1.2 says the personality of the business is known as the A, organizational resources, B, organizational culture, C, or B, organizational structure rather, C, organizational culture, or D, functions of management. These are just general knowledge questions. They don't, how can I put it? They are not specific to the business only, but to humans also in general. I think these are very easy answers to answer. These are very easy questions to answer. It concludes the lesson for today. A very broad topic, but I just hope you will have learned a thing or two. Like I said, this is a personalized lesson based on my understanding. So if there's any information you need to pass or you did not get, you are more than welcome to consult further information, or consult your teachers, or consult Google. This is personally my understanding of the microenvironment. So I hope whoever's watching has enjoyed the lesson, and if there's any feedback you want to give or share, suggestions, comments, positive or negative, I'm always open to any of those. So stay blessed, man.